I sat at the elegant family dinner table I had arranged to celebrate my son Jason's promotion. The private dining room glowed with soft candlelight, and the November evening outside the windows was crisp and beautiful. My daughter-in-law Courtney sat across from me, dripping in designer clothes and jewelry I didn't recognize. She suddenly stood up, her chair scraping against the polished floor. Her voice cut through the warm conversation like a knife through silk. "Security. Get this pauper away from the table!" I froze, my wine glass halfway to my lips, completely confused. Beth, the security guard, approached hesitantly from the doorway. Courtney pointed at my simple dress, my comfortable shoes. "She clearly doesn't belong here. She's ruining our celebration." Jason said nothing. The entire restaurant turned to watch as my face burned with humiliation. My hands trembled on the white tablecloth. The fabric was thick and expensive, and I could feel every thread beneath my fingertips as the room seemed to tilt around me. I looked at Jason, my only child, the boy I had raised alone after his father died 5 years ago. I waited for him to speak up, to defend me, to tell Courtney this was all some terrible misunderstanding. He looked down at his plate. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The realization hit me like ice water. He wasn't going to defend me. "Ma'am," Beth the security guard said softly, clearly uncomfortable. She was a woman about my age, with kind eyes that looked apologetic. "Is there some kind of problem here?" Courtney's voice rose, theatrical and sharp. "Yes, there's a problem. This woman crashed our private dinner. She wasn't invited." She pulled out her phone with a flourish, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the screen. "See? The reservation is under my name. Henderson Party, table for 6. She has no right to be here." I found my voice, though it came out smaller than I intended. "I made this reservation 3 weeks ago. I organized this entire dinner to celebrate Jason's promotion. I was going to pay for everything." Courtney's laugh was brittle and cold. "That's absurd. Why would you pay for our celebration?" She turned to Beth. She's clearly confused. Probably wandered in from the street. The private room's doors were open now. Well-dressed patrons in the main dining area craned their necks to see what was happening. I recognized some of them. They were executives from Meridian Industries, the company I had founded 40 years ago with my late husband Harold. But they didn't seem to recognize me. I had always kept a low profile, preferring to let my executive team handle public appearances. "Courtney," I said quietly, trying to maintain some dignity, "I know what you're doing." Her smile was a smirk, really, cold and triumphant. "I have no idea what you mean. I'm just trying to enjoy a nice dinner with my husband and our guests without disruptions." I gathered my purse, my movements slow and deliberate. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me run. "Jason," I said, looking at my son one more time, "please, tell them." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he finally spoke, and his voice was cold, rehearsed, like he had practiced these words. "Mom, maybe it's better if you just go. We can talk later." The words hit harder than any physical blow could have. This was planned. My own son had helped plan my humiliation. I walked through the restaurant with my head high. Even as my vision blurred with tears, I refused to let fall. Every eye in the place was on me. I heard the whispers as I passed. How embarrassing. Poor thing. At her age, too. The November Chicago wind hit me as I stepped outside onto the sidewalk. I had left my coat inside, hanging on the back of my chair, but I would rather freeze than go back in there. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from Grace, my sister. "How's the dinner going? Is Jason surprised?" I couldn't respond. My fingers were shaking too badly. I walked to my car in the parking garage, my comfortable shoes clicking on the concrete. I had worn them because I thought we would be sitting for hours, enjoying good food and good conversation. Now they felt like evidence of my failure to meet Courtney's standards. I sat in my car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The parking garage was cold and echoed with distant sounds. My mind kept replaying the moment. Courtney's pointed finger. Jason's silence. The stairs. Then I thought about something else. Something important. Courtney worked in marketing at Meridian Industries. She had no idea that I wasn't just a shareholder. I was the founder. After Harold died, I had maintained my controlling interest, but stepped back from daily operations. I let Marcus, my CFO, and the rest of my executive team run things. I preferred privacy, preferred to travel and enjoy my life after decades of building the company from nothing. But I still owned 51%. I still had final say on everything. Courtney had just humiliated me in public. She had turned my son against me. She had made me feel small and worthless and old. I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus, despite the late hour. He answered on the third ring, sounding worried. "Sandra, is everything okay? It's almost 10 o'clock. I need Courtney Henderson's personnel file first thing tomorrow morning," I said. My voice was steady now, cold and clear. "And schedule an emergency board meeting." There was a pause. Courtney Henderson? From marketing? Marcus sounded confused. I hadn't involved myself in personnel matters in years. "Sandra, what's going on? Is everything all right?" "Everything's about to be," I said, and ended the call. I drove home through the dark Chicago streets, already composing what I would say at the board meeting. I didn't know yet that I was about to make everything exponentially worse. I didn't know that using my corporate power would be the first domino in a chain of disasters. I just knew that I refused to be treated like trash by someone who worked for a company I built with my own hands. The streets were quiet. The city lights blurred past. And somewhere across town, my son was probably still at that restaurant, celebrating with the woman who had just destroyed me. I didn't cry until I got home. The next morning, I arrived at Meridian Industries headquarters for the first time in 6 months. The building was a sleek glass tower in downtown Chicago, 30 stories of steel and ambition. Harold and I had started the company in a rented office above a dry cleaner. Now it employed over 2,000 people and generated $100 million in annual revenue. I had to show my ID to the security guard in the lobby. He was new, didn't recognize me. "I'm here for a board meeting," I explained. He checked his computer, found my name, issued me a visitor badge. A visitor badge. In my own building, Marcus met me at the elevator, his face creased with concern. He was in his late 50s, had been with the company for 20 years. "Sandra, what's this about? You sounded upset last night." "Let's talk in private," I said. We rode the elevator to the executive floor. Employees stared at me as we walked past. Some recognized me from company photos, most didn't. I had always avoided the spotlight, let Harold and then Marcus be the public faces of Meridian. In Marcus's office, he handed me Courtney's personnel file. I read it carefully. Courtney Marie Henderson, age 38. Hired 3 years ago as a marketing coordinator. Promoted twice since then. Current position, marketing director. Current salary, $250,000 a year. My money. I had been funding her designer lifestyle. The performance reviews were glowing. Innovative thinker, excellent team player, strong leadership potential. Her supervisor had recommended her for the director position just 6 months ago. "She's well liked," Marcus said, watching me read. "What's going on?" I told him about the dinner. His face darkened as I spoke. "That's unconscious," he said when I finished. "Sandra, I'm so sorry, but what do you want to do about it?" "I want her demoted," I said, immediately. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Sandra, I understand you're hurt, but we need to be careful here. We can't just demote someone without cause. It opens the company to liability." "I own 51% of this company," I said. My voice was quiet, but hard as stone. "Make it happen." I met with Angela from Human Resources and Derek, our corporate counsel. Derek was young, maybe 35, sharp and careful. He echoed Marcus's concerns. "Mrs. Henderson, I strongly advise against this. A demotion without documented performance issues or policy violations could expose Meridian to a wrongful termination lawsuit. Even if we technically have the right to do it, it looks like retaliation for personal reasons. It is retaliation for personal reasons, I said. She humiliated me in public. She used her position in my company to make me feel worthless. I want her to understand there are consequences. Angela, the HR director, spoke carefully. She was a woman in her 40s with wire-rimmed glasses. What would you like the new position to be? Facilities services, I said. Kitchen and cleaning crew. Derek winced. That's a significant demotion. From a director making $250,000 to essentially a janitor making $35,000. That's going to look punitive. It is punitive, I said. Do it. They did it because I own the company. That's the power of being the founder, of holding controlling interest. They could advise against it, but they couldn't stop me. By noon, Courtney was called into Angela's office. I watched from my rarely used office down the hall. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see through the glass walls. Courtney's face went from confused to shocked to pale. Angela slid a document across the desk. I knew what it was. The ownership structure of Meridian Industries. Sandra Henderson, founder and majority shareholder. Courtney's hands shook as she read it. For a moment, I felt a savage satisfaction. Justice, consequences. She would understand that you don't humiliate people without repercussions. Within hours, word spread through the entire company. The gossip was instantaneous and viral. People were shocked that the founder had personally demoted someone. Many employees had never even known Sandra Henderson was still involved with the company. By mid-afternoon, I saw Courtney for the first time in her new role. She wore a janitorial uniform, pale blue and shapeless. She was taking out trash from the executive wing. Our eyes met across the hallway. Hers were red from crying. Mine were cold. Justice felt sweet for exactly 3 hours. Then Jason arrived. He stormed into my office without knocking. His face was red with rage, his fists clenched at his sides. "What have you done?" he shouted. "I did what needed to be done," I said calmly. "You ruined her career." Jason's voice echoed in the office. People outside turned to look. "Over a misunderstanding. Over nothing." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said, standing up. "She deliberately humiliated me. She called security on me like I was some vagrant off the street. She turned you against me." "She didn't turn me against you," Jason said. His voice was shaking. "You did that yourself. You're vindictive. You're cruel. I can't believe you would abuse your power like this." "Jason, she works for my company. She makes $250,000 a year from my company. And she treated me like garbage." "She made a mistake," Jason shouted. "People make mistakes. But you're supposed to be better than this. You're supposed to be my mother. Instead, you're just a petty, jealous old woman." The word old stung more than I expected. "Jealous?" I said. "Of what?" "Of Courtney. Of our marriage. You've always tried to undermine us. You've never accepted her. And now you've destroyed her career because you can't stand that I have someone else in my life." "That's not true," I said. But my voice was weak. Was it true? Had I been jealous? No. I had always tried to be welcoming, even though Courtney had been distant and cold from the beginning. But Jason clearly believed otherwise. "Undo this," Jason said. His voice dropped to something hard and final. "Restore her position by end of business tomorrow, or I'm done. You'll never see me again. And when Courtney and I have children, they'll never know their grandmother." The threat landed like a physical blow. Grandchildren, a future I might never see. "Jason," I started, but he was already turning to leave. At the door, he turned back. His face was cold, stranger's eyes. "And Courtney's lawyer is filing a wrongful termination lawsuit against you and the company. You just cost Meridian millions. I hope your revenge was worth it." Then he was gone. I sat down slowly in my office chair. Outside the windows, Chicago spread out in all directions, busy and indifferent. My phone started buzzing. Board members. Derek the lawyer wanting an emergency meeting. Marcus asking what he should do. I had solved the problem of my humiliation by using my corporate power. And in doing so, I had created a much worse problem. I was losing my son. I was exposing my company to a massive lawsuit. I had turned a private family conflict into a public corporate scandal. The sun set over Chicago in shades of orange and pink, beautiful and cold. I sat in my office as the sky darkened, watching my phone light up with increasingly urgent messages, and realized I had made a terrible mistake. But I didn't know yet how much worse it was going to get. The lawsuit was filed the next morning. Derek brought me the papers personally, his face grim. Courtney Marie Henderson versus Meridian Industries and Sandra Henderson individually. Wrongful termination, emotional distress, discrimination based on age and gender. She was asking for $15 million. This is bad, Derek said. We were in a conference room, the papers spread across the polished table. She's claiming you targeted her because she's a younger woman who married your son. That's age and gender discrimination right there. Even if we win, the legal fees and publicity will cost millions. The board held an emergency meeting that afternoon. I sat at the head of the table, in the chair Harold used to occupy. 8 board members stared at me with varying degrees of anger and concern. Thomas, the lead board member, spoke first. He was in his 60s, gray-haired and serious. Sandra, you've exposed this company to massive liability over a personal grudge. This is exactly the kind of thing we have protocols to prevent. I made a mistake, I admitted. I was angry. Angry? Thomas's voice rose. You used your ownership position to punish a family member. The optics are terrible. We need to settle this immediately. The demand is $15 million, I said. Then we pay it, another board member said. Her name was Patricia, a sharp woman who ran her own consulting firm. We pay it, and we make this go away before it destroys the company's reputation. We did nothing wrong, I said. Legally, I had the right to reassign her. Rights and optics are different things, Patricia shot back. This looks like an abuse of power. It looks like nepotism in reverse. It looks like you're unstable. That word again. Unstable. Old. Incompetent. The meeting ended with the board demanding I settle. I refused. I wouldn't pay Courtney $15 million for calling security on me. That decision made everything worse. The story leaked to the media the next day. Business publications picked it up immediately. Meridian Industries founder in nepotism scandal. Tech pioneer accused of wrongful termination of daughter-in-law. Family Feud exposes corporate governance issues at Meridian. The stock price dropped 8% in one day. Major clients started calling Marcus, expressing concern about stability in leadership. 3 clients put their contracts under review. I stayed home, watching my life unravel on the news. My phone rang constantly. I stopped answering. Grace, my sister, came over on the 3rd day. She let herself in with her spare key and found me sitting in the dark living room, still in my bathrobe. Sandra, honey, she said gently, sitting beside me. You can't hide forever. I'm not hiding. I'm regrouping. You need to fix this. Grace took my hand. She was 2 years younger than me, had always been the peacemaker in our family. Jason won't take my calls either. He's shut everyone out except Courtney. She's poisoned him against me. Maybe, Grace said carefully. But you have to admit, demoting her was extreme. I know she hurt you, but this has spiraled out of control. What should I do? Apologize, Grace said simply. Swallow your pride, restore her position, make peace with your son. Life's too short for this. I thought about it for a long time after Grace left. Could I do it? Could I apologize to Courtney, give her back her job, pretend none of this happened? I called Jason. He didn't answer. I texted, please, let's talk. I'll make this right. Hours passed. Then, finally, a response. Come to our house tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Hope flickered in my chest. Maybe reconciliation was possible. Maybe I could fix this. I spent the next day preparing. I would apologize. I would offer Courtney her job back, even a raise if necessary. I would grovel if I had to. Jason was my only child. I couldn't lose him. I arrived at their townhouse in Lincoln Park at exactly 2 o'clock. It was an expensive place, 3 stories of brick and glass in one of Chicago's nicest neighborhoods. Jason and Courtney had bought it 2 years ago. I had helped with the down payment. Jason let me in. His face was neutral, unreadable. Courtney sat on the white leather couch in the living room, arms crossed. She wore designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. She looked nothing like the woman in the janitorial uniform I had seen days before. Her smile was small and cold. My hope began to waver. "Mom," Jason said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit down." Saturday Jason Courtney. I want to apologize. I was hurt and angry, and I reacted badly. I shouldn't have used my position at the company to retaliate. It was wrong. Courtney's smile didn't change. "Save it," she said. "We know why you're here. The lawsuit's generating bad press. The board's pressuring you. You're not sorry. You're just trying to make this go away." "That's not true," I started, but Jason cut me off. He slid a stack of papers across the coffee table. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over 30% of your Meridian shares to me. That'll leave you with 51%, me with 30%, and the other shareholders with 19%. I stared at the papers, then at my son. "That's worth $40 million. Consider it my inheritance," Jason said flatly. "Early." Courtney leaned forward, her eyes bright and hard. "You humiliated me. You tried to ruin my career. You abused your power. This is the price of reconciliation. Sign the papers, give Jason his shares, and we'll drop the lawsuit. Everyone wins. And if I don't?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Then we proceed with the lawsuit," Jason said. "We take this public. We tell every media outlet how you abused your power, how you're an unstable old woman who shouldn't be running a company. We'll destroy Meridian's reputation and your legacy." I looked at my son, searching his face for the boy I had raised. The child who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares. The teenager who cried in my arms when his father died. The young man I had been so proud of. I saw only coldness, only greed. Courtney had done this to him. She had twisted him into someone I didn't recognize. "No," I said. "I won't sign." Jason's face hardened. "Then you've made your choice." "Jason, that company is your father's legacy. It's what he built with his bare hands. I won't hand it over, because you married someone who wants to extort me." "Get out," Jason said. His voice was deadly quiet. "You're dead to me." I stood up slowly. My legs felt shaky. "Jason, please, don't do this." I said, "Get out," he was shouting now. "You're not my mother anymore. You're just a bitter, vindictive old woman who can't stand to see anyone else happy." I walked to the door. My vision was blurred with tears I refused to let fall in front of them. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard Courtney's voice from the living room, talking on her phone. "It didn't work," she said. Her voice was low but clear. "Proceed with Phase 2. I froze. Phase 2? What was Phase 2? But Jason was already ushering me out, practically pushing me onto the front steps. The door slammed behind me. I stood on the sidewalk in the cold afternoon air. Inside that house, my son was plotting something with his wife. Something bigger than a lawsuit. Something I didn't understand yet. I got in my car and drove home through streets that felt suddenly dangerous. I had tried to reconcile, tried to make peace. Instead, I had discovered that this wasn't just about revenge or money. There was a bigger plan, and I was walking into a trap I couldn't see. I hired a private investigator the next morning. His name was Frank Williams, a retired Chicago PD detective in his late 60s, with tired eyes and a gentle manner. I met him in a coffee shop in Bucktown. "I need you to look into my daughter-in-law," I said. "Her name is Courtney Henderson. I need to know who she really is." Frank pulled out a small notebook. "What are we looking for?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But something's wrong. This feels bigger than just a family fight." Frank said he would see what he could find. Meanwhile, things at Meridian deteriorated rapidly. Marcus called me with bad news every day. 3 major clients had canceled contracts, citing concerns about leadership instability. The company lost $12 million in annual revenue in 1 week. Articles continued appearing in business publications. Anonymous sources painted me as an erratic elderly executive who weaponized her company for personal vendettas. I knew the sources were Courtney and Jason. The descriptions were too specific, too pointed. Employee morale collapsed. Many employees sided with Courtney, seeing her as a victim of abuse of power. They didn't know what had happened at the restaurant. They only knew that the founder had suddenly appeared after months of absence and demoted a well-liked director to janitor for no apparent reason. Some employees organized a petition demanding my resignation. Over 300 people signed it. The board, led by Thomas, called another emergency meeting. This time, their demand was different. "We need a full forensic audit of company finances," Thomas said. His voice was formal, careful. "We need to ensure that everything is above board, that there haven't been other instances of personal decisions affecting company operations." "You want to audit me?" I said, shocked. "We want to audit the company," Patricia clarified, "including any transactions you've authorized. It's just due diligence, Sandra. Surely you understand." I understood perfectly. They were questioning my integrity, but I had nothing to hide. Fine, audit away. The forensic accounting firm started work the next week. Frank called me on a Tuesday evening. "I've got some preliminary information on Courtney Henderson." We met at the same coffee shop. Frank slid a folder across the table. "Courtney's background before she met your son is interesting," he said. "She changed her name 8 years ago. Legal name change through the courts. Before she was Courtney Henderson, she was Courtney Blackwell. Why did she change it? That's where it gets murky. Courtney Blackwell has a history. Nothing criminal, but there are civil court records. 2 lawsuits from ex-boyfriends claiming fraud. Both cases were settled out of court, with non-disclosure agreements. I'm still digging, but it looks like she has a pattern of targeting wealthy men." My hands tightened around my coffee cup. "Does Jason know?" "I doubt it. This stuff is buried pretty deep. You have to know where to look." Finally, evidence. Proof that Courtney wasn't who she claimed to be. I could show Jason. He would have to listen. I called him immediately. The phone rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I texted, "I have information about Courtney you need to see. It's important." He didn't respond. I tried again the next day, and the next. Each time, silence. On Friday, Derek, the corporate lawyer, arrived at my house at 8 o'clock at night. His face was grave in the porch light. "Sandra, we have a serious problem." He came inside. I made coffee I didn't want. We sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had raised Jason, where Harold had died 5 years ago after his heart attack. "The forensic audit found irregularities," Derek said. My stomach dropped. "What kind of irregularities?" $3 million in payments to a shell company over the past 2 years. The shell company traces back to an offshore account. The authorizing signature on the transfer documents is yours. "That's impossible." My voice came out steady despite the fear rising in my chest. "I haven't signed any transfer authorizations in 2 years. Everything goes through Marcus and the finance team." Derek opened his briefcase and pulled out copies of documents. Wire transfer authorizations, each one with my signature at the bottom. The signatures looked perfect, identical to how I signed my name. "Derek, I didn't sign these. I've never seen these documents before." "Sandra." Derek's voice was gentle but firm. "These were notarized. The notary confirms you were present at her office in Oak Park. There's video footage." He pulled out his laptop and showed me. Security footage from a notary's office. A woman who looked like me, same height, same gray hair, wearing clothes similar to what I owned. She signed documents. The timestamp showed dates 2 years ago. "That's not me," I said. My voice was rising. "Look at her hands. She's wearing my wedding ring, but her hands are younger. The skin's different. Derek squinted at the screen. He saw what I meant. Maybe. But he looked skeptical. Sandra, is it possible you signed these and don't remember? Have you been experiencing any memory issues? Any confusion? The question hit me like a slap. They thought I was senile. They thought I had embezzled from my own company and forgotten about it. No, I said firmly. I have not been experiencing memory issues. Someone forged my signature and faked that video. Someone is framing me. Who would do that? Courtney, I said immediately. She had access to company systems through her marketing role. She could have gotten sample signatures. She could have hired someone to impersonate me. Derek closed his laptop. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof? Not yet, but I will. Sandra, the board is meeting tomorrow. They're discussing whether to suspend your operational authority pending investigation. This is embezzlement. From your own company, yes, but technically, it's still embezzlement. You could face criminal charges. After Derek left, I sat in my dark kitchen for hours. Someone had forged my signature. Someone had stolen $3 million and made it look like I did it. Someone had created video evidence showing me at a notary's office I had never visited. This was phase 2. This was what Courtney had been talking about on the phone. They weren't just trying to take my money. They were trying to take everything. My company, my freedom, my sanity. The board meeting the next day was brutal. I sat at the table while they discussed me like I wasn't there. The evidence is concerning, Thomas said. $3 million is missing. Sandra's signature is on the authorizations. There's video evidence. I'm being framed, I said. Someone is setting me up. Patricia shook her head. Sandra, I know this is difficult, but we have to consider all possibilities. Memory issues are common. Maybe you authorized these transfers for reasons that made sense at the time, and now you simply don't remember. I don't have memory issues. My voice was too loud, too desperate. I could see them exchanging glances. The crazy old lady protesting too much. The vote was quick and unanimous. My operational authority was suspended pending investigation. I was escorted from the building by security. Marcus tried to defend me, but he was one voice against 7. As I walked through the lobby with the security guard, employees stared. The woman who founded this company being removed from her own building. The media was waiting outside. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Henderson, did you embezzle from your own company? Mrs. Henderson, are you experiencing cognitive decline? Mrs. Henderson, will you resign? I pushed through them to my car. My hands shook so badly, I could barely get the key in the ignition. By evening, the news was everywhere. Meridian Industries founder suspended amid embezzlement investigation. My photo, old and unflattering, ran beside headlines questioning my mental competence. Friends stopped calling. Business associates sent polite but distant emails. My accountant, my financial advisor, my lawyer, all suddenly very busy, very unavailable. I was being erased, removed, made into a cautionary tale about elderly executives who couldn't let go. And somewhere in Chicago, Courtney and Jason were watching my destruction and planning their next move. That night, Jason came to my house with a psychiatrist and legal documents. I opened the door to find them standing on my porch. Dr. Patterson, the psychiatrist, was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes that felt like a trap. Mom, Jason said. His voice had a false gentleness that made my skin crawl. We need to talk. I've filed for emergency guardianship. Dr. Patterson is going to evaluate you. We think you need help. You're clearly not capable of managing your affairs anymore. I looked at the papers in his hand. Petition for guardianship. If granted, Jason would control my finances, my property, my medical decisions, everything. Get off my property, I said. Mom, please. This is for your own good. I said, get off my property. I'm not speaking to any psychiatrist without my own lawyer present. Dr. Patterson stepped forward. Mrs. Henderson, I understand you're upset, but fighting this will only make things harder. If you're competent, the evaluation will show that. There's nothing to fear. Except my son trying to steal my life, I said, and slammed the door. Through the window, I watched them leave. Jason looked back once, his face unreadable in the porch light. I sat on my living room floor and finally let myself cry. Not gentle tears, but huge, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. I had lost everything, my company, my reputation, my son, and now they were coming for my freedom, my autonomy, my very right to control my own life. I was 67 years old. I had built a successful company. I had raised a son alone after my husband died. I had survived and thrived. And now I was being painted as a confused old woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. The trap was complete, and I had walked into it willingly, step by step, starting with that dinner when I tried to use my corporate power for revenge. Every solution I had tried had made things worse. Every attempt to fight back had been used against me. I was drowning, and the more I struggled, the faster I sank. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. My lawyer, Barbara Wright, was a tough litigator with short, dark hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She laid out the situation bluntly in her office overlooking Lake Michigan. You're facing embezzlement charges, a competency hearing, and the ongoing wrongful termination lawsuit. Legal fees are going to run into the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. I have money, I said. Your personal accounts are frozen pending the embezzlement investigation, Barbara said. The court has restricted access until they determine whether those funds are proceeds from the alleged theft. So I had no access to my own money. I borrowed $50,000 from Grace just to pay Barbara's retainer. The competency hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Jason's lawyers had filed an emergency petition claiming I was a danger to myself due to cognitive decline. The evidence they presented was damning. Confused emails I supposedly sent to board members, asking about meetings that never happened. Strange voicemails I supposedly left for Marcus, rambling and incoherent. Financial records showing erratic spending patterns. All of it fabricated. All of it designed to make me look incompetent. But how could I prove I hadn't sent emails from my own account? How could I prove voicemails from my own phone weren't mine? They've hacked into my accounts, I told Barbara. They're creating false evidence. Can you prove that? Not yet. Barbara sighed. Sandra, I believe you. But the court needs evidence, not beliefs. The court-appointed psychiatrist, Dr. Patterson, conducted her evaluation over 2 days. She was professional, thorough, and ultimately skeptical of my claims. Mrs. Henderson shows signs of paranoid thinking, her report concluded. She believes her son and daughter-in-law are engaged in an elaborate conspiracy against her. While she demonstrates no obvious cognitive impairment in basic functioning, her grip on reality regarding these relationships appears tenuous. Recommend supervised management of affairs. Not fully incompetent, just incompetent enough. The judge, a woman in her 50s, named Judge Harriet Morrison, reviewed the evidence. She looked tired, like she had seen too many sad family fights. I'm appointing Jason Henderson as temporary conservator of his mother's financial affairs, she said from the bench. This is not a determination of full incompetency, but a protective measure while we sort out these various legal issues. Jason got control of my finances. Not permanently, not completely, but enough. Enough to vote my shares at Meridian. Enough to access my accounts. Enough to make decisions about my property. I sat in that courtroom and felt my life slip away. With Jason controlling my voting rights at Meridian, the board moved quickly. Emergency session. Thomas called the meeting to order with Jason sitting in my usual seat. The vote was unanimous. Sandra Henderson, removed from all company positions. Thomas appointed as acting CEO. All of Sandra's operational authority permanently revoked. Courtney was reinstated to her marketing director position, with a raise, now making $300,000 a year. The media coverage was brutal. Tech pioneers fall, from grace complete. When Founders Go Rogue. The Sandra Henderson story. Elderly executives' mental decline leads to corporate chaos. I became a cautionary tale. A warning about founders who couldn't let go, about elderly people clinging to power they could no longer handle. Friends stopped calling. Old business associates sent carefully worded emails, expressing concern but keeping distance. People I had known for decades crossed the street to avoid me. Grace came over every day. She was the only one who still believed me. "We'll figure this out," she said, holding my hand in my kitchen. But even her voice sounded uncertain. Frank, the private investigator, finally made a breakthrough. He called me on a Tuesday morning, excited. "Sandra, I've got it. Courtney's history goes back further than I thought. Before Courtney Blackwell, she was Courtney Ryan. She was involved in a similar scheme in Boston 7 years ago. Tell me everything." She targeted a wealthy older man, Edmund Price. Widower, owned a manufacturing company. She started dating his son, Marcus Price. Same pattern, almost identical. She tried to manipulate the family, position herself to take control of the company. It fell apart before she could complete it. Edmund figured out what she was doing. She disappeared, changed her name, and reinvented herself. Did Edmund press charges? No. He just wanted her gone. He died 2 years ago. His son Marcus lives in Seattle now. I tracked him down. He's willing to talk to you. Finally, proof that Courtney was a professional con artist. This would show Jason who he really married. But Barbara Wright was less optimistic when I showed her Frank's findings. "It's good information," she said. "It establishes a pattern. But it doesn't prove she forged the embezzlement documents. It doesn't prove she fabricated the emails and voicemails. It's circumstantial." Then what do I do? We keep digging. There has to be a mistake somewhere. Forgers always make mistakes. But time was running out. Jason had filed paperwork to sell my house. The house where I raised him, where Harold died in my arms after his heart attack. Jason claimed I couldn't maintain it, that I should move to an assisted living facility. Judge Morrison scheduled a hearing. Barbara filed objections, but the judge seemed inclined to approve the sale. "Your son argues that you're living alone in a large house you can no longer manage," the judge said. "Given the competency concerns, this seems reasonable." "I can manage my own house," I said. "I've lived there for 35 years. Mrs. Henderson, I understand this is difficult, but we're trying to protect you." "Protect me?" "By taking away everything I owned, everything I had built, everything I loved." The stress finally caught up with me. I woke up one night with crushing chest pain. Grace found me on the floor of my bedroom, gasping. She called 911. The emergency room doctors ran tests. Not a heart attack, severe anxiety attack. My heart was fine physically. It was breaking emotionally. But the hospital visit became more ammunition. Jason told the court his mother was declining rapidly, needed immediate intervention. A week later, Judge Morrison ruled. The house could be sold. Proceeds would go into a trust managed by Jason. I would be moved to a supervised living situation. I was losing my home. I sat in that house, surrounded by boxes Grace was helping me pack, and looked at photos of Harold, our wedding day, Jason's birth, family vacations, building Meridian from nothing. I failed, I told Harold's picture. I failed to protect what we built. Grace found me crying. She held me like I was a child. "You haven't failed. You're still fighting. I have nothing left to fight with. You have your mind. You have the truth. And you have me." That night, I made a decision. A dangerous one. Maybe even an illegal one. I called Frank. "I need you to do something. Something that might not be entirely legal." Frank was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need?" "I need you to get into Courtney's laptop, remotely, if possible. I need to see what's on it. There has to be evidence there. Proof of what she's done. Sandra, if we get caught, you could face criminal charges. Hacking, unlawful access, it's serious." "I have nothing left to lose." Frank was silent. Then, "Give me a few days. I have contacts who owe me favors." 3 days later, Frank called. I'm in. Or rather, my contact is in. We placed a device in their townhouse that will clone Courtney's laptop contents remotely. It's transferring now. How did you get into their house? You don't want to know the details. Let's just say I used my old police contacts and some morally gray tactics. I waited. Hours felt like years. Frank and I sat in my living room, watching a progress bar on his laptop as Courtney's files downloaded. 90%, 95%, 98%, 100%. We're in, Frank said. I'm sending everything to you now. I opened the files on my own laptop, hundreds of documents, thousands of emails, and there it was. Forged signatures. My signature, practiced hundreds of times in draft documents. Fake emails created to look like they came from my account. Correspondence with the notary, who had been bribed to create the fake video. Everything. The entire conspiracy laid out in digital detail. But there was more. Emails from someone named Adrian Thorne. My blood went cold. Adrian Thorne was a business rival. He had tried to buy Meridian 3 years ago. Hostile takeover attempt. I had fought him off, kept my company independent. These emails showed everything. Adrian had hired Courtney. Paid her $200,000 up front, with a promise of $5 million more once the plan succeeded. The plan: infiltrate Meridian by marrying Jason, destroy Sandra's credibility, frame her for embezzlement, get her removed from the company, then convince Jason to sell Meridian to Adrian for pennies during the scandal. Courtney wasn't just a con artist working alone. She was a corporate spy, a professional hired by my business enemy to destroy me. And Jason didn't know. The emails made that clear. Jason thought this was all Courtney's idea, revenge for my treatment of her. He didn't know he was a pawn in a corporate espionage scheme. I read until dawn, until my eyes burned and my head pounded. I had the evidence. I had everything I needed to destroy Courtney and expose Adrian. But it was stolen evidence, obtained through illegal means. If I used it in court, I could face criminal charges. The evidence might be inadmissible, and even if I could use it, would Jason forgive me for exposing how thoroughly he had been manipulated? I stared at my laptop screen as the sun rose over Chicago. I had the truth, but truth obtained illegally is a weapon that can destroy the person holding it. What was I going to do? Barbara Wright's answer was immediate and unequivocal when I showed her the laptop evidence. Absolutely not, she said in her office the next morning. This was obtained illegally. We cannot use it in court. If we try, you'll face criminal charges for the break-in and hacking. We could both lose our licenses. The answer is no. Then what good is the truth if I can't use it? We need to find another way, Barbara said. Use this information to guide us, but we need Courtney to expose herself voluntarily. We need her to confess on record. An idea formed. Dangerous, risky, possibly stupid. What if I wear a wire, confront her directly, try to get her to admit what she's done? Barbara looked skeptical. That's extremely risky. If she realizes what you're doing, you could be in physical danger. These people have already shown they're willing to destroy you. And, even if you get a recording, she has lawyers. She'll claim duress, entrapment, all sorts of things. It's the only play I have left. Grace was more direct when I told her. Absolutely not. You've already lost so much. Just walk away. Move to Florida. Start over. Forget all this. But I couldn't forget. This was my life's work. Harold's legacy. I wouldn't let them steal it. Frank helped me prepare. He provided a small recording device that looked like a button on my blouse. We rehearsed what I should say, how to prompt admissions without being obvious. We picked a public location for safety, the Meridian Industries cafeteria during lunch hour. Plenty of witnesses if things went wrong. On a Thursday afternoon, I drove to Meridian. My heart pounded as I approached the building. I had been banned, but my conservatorship status created confusion. The security guards weren't sure if I was allowed in or not. I walked past them while they debated. I found Courtney in the executive dining area. She sat at a table with two other marketing directors, laughing at something on her phone. I walked over and sat down across from her, uninvited. Her laughter died. "You're not supposed to be here." "We need to talk," I said. The other directors exchanged glances and quickly left. Smart. They sensed conflict. "I could have you arrested for trespassing," Courtney said. But she didn't call anyone. She was curious. "I know what you are," I said, touching my collar to make sure the recording device was positioned correctly. "I know about Boston. I know about Courtney Ryan." For just a moment, genuine shock crossed her face. Then she recovered, smiled that cold smile. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Edmund Price. Marcus Price. The manufacturing company in Boston. You tried the same scheme there. It didn't work, so you disappeared and reinvented yourself." Courtney's hands tightened around her water glass. "You're delusional. Everyone knows that. Even the court knows it." "I know about Adrian Thorne," I said. "I know he hired you." That landed. Her face went pale. "I know Jason is just your mark. I know this whole thing is corporate espionage." Courtney leaned forward, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You can't prove any of that. And even if you could, who would believe you? You're the crazy old lady who embezzled from her own company. You're under conservatorship because you're incompetent. Your own son thinks you've lost your mind." Other executives at nearby tables were starting to watch us, voices rising, tension obvious. "I have your laptop files," I said. It was a bluff, legally speaking. I couldn't use them, but she didn't know that. All of them. Real fear flashed across Courtney's face. "That's impossible. You're lying." The forged signatures, the fake emails, the bribed notary, the correspondence with Adrian, everything. Courtney grabbed my wrist hard, her fingers digging in. "Even if you had access, which you don't, it doesn't matter. Jason will never believe you. He loves me. And when I have your company, when I sell it to Adrian for $20 million and split the profit, you'll have nothing. You'll die in some nursing home, forgotten and alone." I touched my collar again, making sure the device caught every word. But I needed more. I needed her to admit to the embezzlement frame-up specifically. "The $3 million, I said. "The forged wire transfers. How did you do it?" Courtney's eyes narrowed. "Why would I tell you that?" "Because you've already won. What does it matter now?" For a moment, she seemed to consider it. The arrogance of a predator who thinks their prey is already dead. But then, something changed in her expression. Suspicion. "This conversation is over." She stood abruptly. "Security." I stood too. "Courtney, please, just tell me why." "Why me? Why my family?" "Because you were vulnerable," she said. "Lonely widow, distant son, valuable company. You were perfect." She reached for her phone. "Security, I have a trespasser in the executive dining area." In her rush to grab her phone, Courtney knocked her coffee cup. Hot liquid splashed across the table, toward me. I jerked backward, but some caught my arm. Not enough to burn badly, but enough to hurt. Courtney gasped theatrically. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She startled me. People rushed over. In the chaos, Courtney's hand shot out and grabbed my blouse collar. She felt the recording device through the fabric. Her eyes went wide, then furious. "You're wearing a wire," she hissed. She yanked hard, ripping the device free. In the same motion, she shoved me backward. I stumbled. My foot caught on a chair leg. I fell hard, the back of my head hitting the edge of a table. Pain exploded. The world tilted. I heard screaming, felt wetness, realized it was blood. People rushed toward me. Courtney was yelling. She attacked me. I was defending myself. My vision blurred. Courtney stood over me, the recording device in her hand. She slipped it into her pocket while everyone else was focused on me and my bleeding head. Then everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital. Bright lights, beeping machines. Grace holding my hand, tears on her face. "You're okay," Grace said. You have a concussion. They're keeping you overnight." My head throbbed. I tried to remember. The cafeteria, Courtney, the recording device. "The recording," I said, my voice slurred. "Did Frank get it?" Grace's face fell. "Courtney took it. Frank says she destroyed it immediately." So the partial confession was gone. I had risked everything and gained nothing. Barbara Wright arrived an hour later, with news that made everything worse. "Courtney is filing criminal assault charges against you. She claims you attacked her, that she acted in self-defense." Several Meridian employees gave statements. They say they saw her stumble backward, and you fall. "She pushed me. She assaulted me." "I know, but witnesses are saying otherwise. Courtney and Jason have convinced people you're unstable and dangerous." I closed my eyes. The hospital room spun. "There's more," Barbara said quietly. "Jason has filed for permanent full conservatorship and involuntary psychiatric commitment. He's arguing you're a danger to yourself and others. Judge Morrison is holding an emergency hearing in 3 days. He's going to lock me in a psychiatric facility." "He's trying to," Barbara said. "Sandra, I'm not going to lie to you. Things look very bad." After Barbara left, I lay in that hospital bed and felt the walls closing in. I had tried to fight back and failed. I had tried to get evidence and lost it. I had tried everything and only made things worse. Jason was going to have me committed. I would lose what little freedom I had left. I would die in an institution while Courtney sold my company to Adrian Thorne. I had lost. But then Frank arrived. And behind him, looking uncertain and broken, was Jason. My heart jumped. "Jason?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. Frank held up a tablet. "Jason, before you do anything else, you need to watch this." Frank pressed play. Security footage from the Meridian cafeteria. High definition, clear audio. The angle showed everything. Courtney and me talking. The conversation audible. "When I have your company, when I sell it to Adrian for $20 million and split the profit, you'll have nothing." Then the moment. Courtney grabbing my collar, finding the device, her face twisting with rage, her hands shoving me hard, deliberately. Me falling. My head hitting the table, blood pooling. Courtney taking the recording device, while people rushed to help me. The video was irrefutable. Jason watched it 3 times. His face changed with each viewing. Shock, confusion, horror, realization. "She pushed you," he said quietly. "She hurt you on purpose." "Yes, and this Adrian Thorne," she mentioned. "She said she was selling the company." "Jason, there's more. Things you don't know." I told him everything. About the emails Frank had found. About Adrian hiring Courtney. About the corporate espionage. About how he had been targeted, manipulated, used as a pawn. Jason sank into a chair. His face was gray. "Everything? All of it was a lie?" "I'm so sorry," I said. "I tried to tell you. She said she loved me." His voice broke. "She said we were going to have children, build a life together. Was any of it real?" "I don't think so, sweetheart. I think she's very good at pretending." Jason put his face in his hands and wept. Great, shaking sobs. I wanted to hold him, but I was stuck in the hospital bed, my head wrapped in bandages. Frank spoke quietly. "Jason, I got this footage through my old police contacts. It's legal, admissible, we can use it. But we need your help. You're the conservator. You have power here. You can stop this." Jason looked up. His eyes were red, his face destroyed. "What do I need to do?" The transformation happened fast, once Jason understood the truth. He sat in my hospital room through the night, reading everything. The emails Frank had obtained. The evidence of Courtney's past schemes. The correspondence with Adrian Thorne, laying out the entire plan. "She targeted me," he kept saying, like he couldn't quite believe it. "She researched me. Figured out I was vulnerable after Dad died. Positioned herself to meet me at that conference. Everything was calculated." "I'm so sorry," I said. "No." Jason's voice was firm. "I'm sorry. I helped her destroy you. I believed every lie. I turned against my own mother. His voice broke. I almost had you committed. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have trusted you. Grace arrived with coffee and found us both crying. She held us both, her arms around me and Jason like we were children. Okay, Jason said finally, wiping his eyes. What do we do? Barbara Wright laid out the strategy. We file emergency motions to dissolve the conservatorship, reinstate Sandra's company control, and file criminal charges against Courtney. With the cafeteria video and Jason's testimony, we have enough. What about the laptop evidence? I asked. The emails with Adrian? Still inadmissible, Barbara said. But we can turn that information over to federal investigators. Corporate espionage is a federal crime. Let them obtain warrants and do their own investigation. Jason made the first move. He went to Meridian the next morning, walked into what used to be my office, and found Courtney sitting at my desk. He put a laptop on the desk. The backup drive from their home, the one with all of Courtney's files. I know everything, he said. Courtney tried to deny it, then to spin it, then to cry and claim she did it because she loved him. Finally, seeing none of it worked, she dropped the act entirely. So what? Her voice was cold, the mask completely off now. We're 3 days from closing the Adrian deal. The contracts are already drafted. Even if you expose me now, the sale will proceed. Your mother's reputation is destroyed. She'll never get control back. And I'll still walk away with $10 million. You're wrong about one thing, Jason said. The sale needs my approval as conservator, and I'm not giving it. He walked out, while Courtney screamed threats at his back. By noon, Barbara had filed emergency motions with Judge Morrison. The cafeteria video was submitted as evidence. Jason gave a sworn statement about everything he had discovered. Frank provided his investigative findings. Judge Morrison reviewed everything in chambers. When she emerged, her face was grave. The conservatorship is dissolved immediately, she said. All of Sandra Henderson's rights are restored. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the state's attorney for potential criminal prosecution. I was free. Barbara moved fast on the corporate side. With Jason's cooperation and the evidence of fraud, we filed emergency motions with the Meridian Board. Thomas and the other directors were forced to hold a meeting. The evidence was overwhelming. Courtney's fake credentials, her history of similar schemes, the emails planning to sell the company to Adrian, the forged embezzlement documents. We were deceived, Thomas admitted. He looked 10 years older. All of us. Sandra, I apologize. We should have trusted you. The board voted unanimously to reinstate me as CEO and majority owner. Courtney was fired immediately. The notary video was explained. Barbara's team tracked down the notary who had created it. Faced with criminal charges, she confessed everything. Courtney had hired an actress who looked like me, used a fake ID in my name, and paid the notary $10,000 to create false documentation. Adrian Thorne's involvement brought federal investigators. Corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud across state lines. The charges mounted. Adrian denied everything at first, but the email evidence was overwhelming once the FBI obtained proper warrants and subpoenas. Courtney was arrested at Meridian headquarters. Federal marshals came during lunch hour, walked her out in handcuffs while employees watched in shock. She screamed at Jason as they led her past. This is all your mother's fault. She turned you against me. I love you. Jason watched her go with dead eyes. No, you don't. You never did. The trial took 8 months. Courtney was convicted on multiple federal felonies: fraud, forgery, embezzlement, conspiracy, and corporate espionage. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison. Adrian Thorne faced separate charges. His company collapsed during the scandal. He was convicted of conspiracy and corporate espionage, sentenced to 7 years. I returned to Meridian. The employees who had doubted me apologized. Some couldn't meet my eyes, ashamed of how quickly they had believed the lies. I accepted their apologies with grace. They had been manipulated, too. Marcus welcomed me back with tears in his eyes. I should have fought harder for you. You did what you could. Courtney was very convincing. The clients who had left started returning. The stock price rebounded. Within 6 months, Meridian was stronger than before. But the real healing happened at home. Jason moved back into his childhood room for a while. He needed space to process everything, to rebuild himself. We had long conversations late at night, sitting in the kitchen where I had raised him. "How do I trust anyone again?" he asked one night. "Carefully," I said. "But you do trust again. Because the alternative is living in fear forever, and that's not living. I helped her destroy you. You were a victim too. She manipulated you. That's what predators do, sweetheart. They find our vulnerabilities and exploit them." Jason eventually moved out, got his own apartment. He quit working at Meridian, said there were too many painful memories. Instead, he went back to school. He had always wanted to teach history, but I had encouraged him to join the family business. Now, he was pursuing his true passion. I supported him completely. He needed to find his own path, separate from my company, separate from the weight of my expectations. 3 months after Courtney's conviction, I organized another family dinner. Same restaurant, same private room. This time the guest list was different. Jason and Grace and Marcus and a few close friends. People I trusted. People who had stood by me. When the manager recognized me, she comped the entire meal and apologized profusely for what had happened months before. I graciously accepted, but insisted on paying anyway. I left Beth the security guard a $500 tip with a note. "Thank you for being kind, even in an impossible situation." The dinner was quiet, warm, healing. We didn't talk much about what had happened. We talked about the future instead. Afterward, Jason walked me to my car. The November air was cold again, exactly like it had been a year ago when this all started. "Mom," he said, "I love you, and I'm sorry for everything." "I love you too, and there's nothing to forgive. We both survived something terrible. Now we get to move forward." He hugged me tight. I held my son and felt peace for the first time in a year. Back at Meridian, I made changes. I created a succession plan that didn't depend on family. I established a trust structure to protect the company after I was gone. I ensured that what Harold and I built would continue serving our employees and community long after we were both gone. I also started mentoring other women entrepreneurs, especially older founders. I shared my story, taught them about protecting their legacies, recognizing manipulation, setting boundaries with family and business. One woman, about my age, came to me in tears. Her daughter was pressuring her to sell the company she had built. "Trust your instincts," I told her. "If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't let anyone make you feel crazy for protecting what you've built." Turning my pain into wisdom that helped others brought unexpected healing. As for Courtney, I felt something I didn't expect. Compassion. Not forgiveness, exactly. What she did was unforgivable. But I understood she was a damaged person who had chosen a dark path. She would spend the next 12 years in prison, and that was justice. But holding on to hate would only poison my own life, so I let it go. I sat in my office at Meridian one afternoon, looking at Harold's photo on my desk. The silver frame was old now, the photo faded. His smile still made my heart ache. "We did it, honey," I told his picture. "We protected what we built together." My phone buzzed. A text from Jason. "Dinner tonight? My treat. I love you, Mom." I smiled and texted back. "I love you too, sweetheart. See you at 7. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Beautiful and warm now. The city spread out below, busy and indifferent as always. But I felt different, lighter, free. I had learned that our greatest vulnerabilities often come from those we love most, and that's not a weakness. It's the price of loving deeply. I learned that dignity doesn't mean silence in the face of injustice. Sometimes fighting back isn't about revenge. It's about protecting what's right and true. I learned that manipulation can cloud even the clearest minds, but patience and truth can penetrate any deception. Most importantly, I learned that our legacy isn't just what we build in business. It's how we handle betrayal, how we forgive without forgetting, and how we transform pain into wisdom that lights the way for others. When someone tries to take everything from you, remember this: they can take your reputation, your money, even your family for a time, but they cannot take who you are at your core, and that core, that truth, will always rise again if you refuse to surrender to bitterness. I looked out at Chicago one more time, then gathered my things. Jason was waiting. We had dinner plans, and I didn't want to be late. The shrew got what she deserved. But more importantly, I got my life and my son back, and that was worth every moment of the fight. Have you ever faced a situation where someone you trusted betrayed you? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like, and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding justice. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that it's never too late to fight back against injustice. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it brings you strength in your own battles, and I wish you peace, courage, and the wisdom to recognize manipulation before it destroys what you love.